Munson and the Geeza. Munson and the Geeza. Reporting from the scene. Munson and the Geeza. News in every right.
Hello.
Well done. From Portugal this afternoon on the Silver Coast, and Tony, Brian, the Portuguese in central Portugal. How are you, Tony?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I get the sense that you are going through this formality with me because you know you should, but you don't really want to. Am I right?
I've said before, it's nothing personal to anyone in the world, but I have to mechanically do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for.
Yeah, but it's not for the reason everybody thinks. Everybody thinks I don't care, but it's not that. It's that I know you do. Yeah, I know. I kind of feel like it's not. I don't know. I'm prying or something, but it's normal. Everybody asks the question, and then everybody lies. Everybody lies.
We've done it now, haven't we? We can move on, I guess. We dispense with that formality and move on into the meatier issues. And I choose my words quite badly, I think, this afternoon. I don't know why we're laughing. Death, dying, and resurrection is a subject, and there are a number of angles. Most notably, the passing of Pope Francis in these last few hours. Right at the end of the celebration of Easter, which is incredible timing, you could say, couldn't you? That at the time of resurrection, he has shuffled off this mortal coil, and I extend my sympathy to anybody who's feeling it badly, and mourning the loss of him. And I know lots of people who aren't as well. That's the thing. And I was saying to you before we came on air that. A pope dying when I was a kid was a really big deal. It would dominate the news, and now the news takes some dominating, doesn't it? These days, it's not what it was. What's your view on it?
Well, like I said to you, it's interesting for me because I didn't even hear about it. I don't think that's got anything to do with it not dominating the news. It's just I haven't really been watching the news much these days. I've been trying not to watch it that much. But I do agree with you. Stories like that were bigger, but I think the news cycle generally. Hi, Carlos. Thanks for checking in there, my friend. The news cycle is faster now. It's much faster now, isn't it? Than it.
Yeah, no question. And that's it. I mean, you were saying, you hadn't heard the news until I brought it to your attention, and it seems right that we talk about it in some way. Going back 40 years, let's say, if someone said they didn't watch the news, they would. Loads of people say that now, don't they? That's a kind of. It seems a little bit edgy to say it, but it's not really, is it? And that's what happens with all of these sentiments, isn't it? It's like, well, when people used to say I don't have a TV, it used to have so much more power than it does now. Or saying I don't watch the news would have made you seem weird, and you'd have had to explain yourself. And now I think people still feel edgy when they say it, but it really isn't. It's just not an edgy thing anymore to not watch the news or not have a TV or watch mainstream media. It's just not a thing for people.
Yeah. Well, I think the news, not even talking about newspapers, but the news was only sort of on once a day. In a way, which was I think growing up, I can't remember the time. Was it 6 till 6:30 or something in the evening?
Yeah,
it seemed to be around dinner time. I know Portuguese people won't know what I'm talking about. 6:30 in the evening around dinner time, but
dinner as well, or tea time, as some people call it in UK, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you watch things, and things were important for a while because there was only probably time. There was only probably time for a few stories, wasn't there? Do you know what I mean?
There had to be one big story, couple of three kind of stories that are bubbling under. Coming to do with the government, and then a light-hearted finish. It'd be like 4 things, wouldn't there? I think in the old style 6 o'clock news.
I can remember when I used to work for the European Broadcasting Union doing like the Olympics. We used to do summaries for there was 2 times of the day, weren't there? There was the early evening news. You'll know what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm sure other people.
6 and 9.
Yeah, and then there was the evening news, wasn't there? So there were so we used to do like 2 daily summaries for people who only watched the news.
Yes,
you know
and
what I mean?
maybe that was like working class tea time news and more middle class late night news.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because the working class is already at the pub by the time the 9 or 10 o'clock news are on. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the demographic thinking behind it. So you only actually watched the news once. You just chose which of those 2 you watched.
Yeah. And then thinking about the Pope, I suppose it compares to something like, I mean, do you remember when where were you when you heard the news about Diana?
I was in the Derbyshire town of Buxton. I was driving from Shropshire to Buxton when I heard the news on the radio.
I was driving, and I remember everything about it. I remember the car I was driving. I was at work.
Yeah.
And I was at the time I worked with my friend doing direct mail, and I was driving. I can remember everything about it. It's like a very clear memory. I had a Mazda MX-6.
Nice.
That's what I was driving, and when I heard the news, I turned left onto a one-way street called Rockaby Road in Subiaco, Perth, which is something I would never normally do. It was just such a shock, and I remember feeling so shocked.
You had to stop
about the news.
Yeah, it kind of hit you in the gut.
Yeah, well, for what reason I don't really know. I mean, I didn't have any particularly strong views either way about her, but she was so famous and so well known, and she was so young as well, I think.
Yeah.
So it was such a shock. Whereas this Pope, if I'm being honest, I don't know. I don't even know what his name was.
Yes. Okay.
I just don't know much about him.
His face is quite iconic, isn't it? His cheerful face, as he's often depicted in some circles, anyway. Interesting. 3 days of mourning. Talk of 3 days of mourning in Portugal. I think we find out at 8 p.m. So it will be big news in Portugal. And I suspect, being a little bit sort of cynical about it, the media of Portugal will be sort of middle class atheistic types serving the mass population of Catholics and thinking how they present that appropriately. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, probably.
You know what media people are like. I don't know how. I don't know. You know, that is a guess, by the way. I'm not saying that is how it is, but that's how I suspect it to be.
Well, media tends to be, in my experience, I worked with the EBU for kind of, I can't say I worked for them for 10 years because it was during events, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
over 10 years.
But it was over a long period of time, and I knew people over ages. Does that make sense? Like I knew people when they were 30, and then I knew them when they were 40, and then I knew them when they were 45, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I definitely could say that most of them, except maybe the tech guys, were probably tended to be more left
leaning.
You know what I mean? Left leaning.
Yeah, middle class types. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, I wonder if that's the case in Portugal. We'll find out from people who know better than us on that. And I mean, it's clearly of all the countries we could be in, being in a Catholic country like Portugal, we will certainly see something, not only of how this death affects the population, but how differently I think the death of a pope affects the population compared to many years ago. And on the sort of conspiracy theory end of things, people are saying the next one will be the last one. That's some kind of prophetic info I've heard somewhere. I can't remember where, but that's something that flashed up. And that's the other part of this conversation we might be having tonight, is that the whole reverence and respect for deaths of notable public figures and some who are very dear to people like monarchs and popes and certain politicians we live in such a different age, don't we? Where, you know, bodies are barely cool before memes start pouring out, and, you know, the whole too soon thing. It's like there's no too soon anymore, is there? It's like people who've no respect or love for particular figures don't even have any respect for the people who like those figures, and are just, you know, with so many outlets of social media, they're just saying what they want to say, and very quickly.
I mean, to a degree, I have a feeling, I could be wrong about this, but I have thought about this before, and I do also suspect that part of this, it seems like that, again, because the cycle moves so quickly. So I mean, if you don't get your memes out about the Pope today, by tomorrow it's all going to be forgotten.
Well, so people are thinking about their own social currency and when to time being distasteful.
I don't know if it's quite that. I just think people are used to moving quickly. And I'll give you an example. I actually watched. I was in Australia, and I must have been in primary school, but I actually watched the Challenger flight.
Oh yeah.
And I watched it live on TV, and I wasn't at school. It was before school, so so it was before I went to school. And so I watched it. You know, I saw the shuttle explode and all that sort of thing, and went, oh my God, you know, I had all the shock. And then went on to school, and when I got to school, someone said, hey, what does NASA stand for? I'm like, what? Need another 7 astronauts?
No.
And I mean, there wasn't even social media in those days. How did that get around the world? I mean, that went around the world.
Yes, yeah.
How? I don't know, but those
because SMS was a transmission medium, wasn't it, for tasteless jokes? Probably still is.
I'm before SMS.
It predates that a long way. Yeah.
This in those days, memes were verbal. You know what I mean? But they did go around the world. They did go around the world somehow, or around maybe the Western world.
And I remember. It's funny. I've got a sudden memory of a rag mag. Do you remember those? Student rag mags, and that was an outlet for filth and distaste.
Yeah,
wasn't it? So humans have always wanted to do that. It's just that we've got much more of it now, haven't we? Got the availability, and also I guess that brings in.
I would guess maybe it was said on some radio station.
Yeah,
and then it kind of filtered out from there. A few kids heard their parents say it, and then across it went.
A shock jock would have been happy to say that, and fair enough. Very interesting. Hello, Jackie. I haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Other comments coming in. Probably can't read a lot of these, Pete. Joaquim says, when Channel 9, I don't know, is that an American channel, sends in a Muslim to report on the Pope's death, I guess we already know the score. Sounds like Joaquin is making a meaning there that
she just WhatsApped me and said she's also vegan.
Okay, so you're obviously you're okay. Do you want to give the background? Do you want to relieve yourself live on air?
No, of course not. Of course not.
Well, I'm really pleased for you. I'm so pleased for you.
Yeah. No, it is nerve-wracking. Let me just tell people, just to put it in perspective.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
Just I'm not going to go into any sort of details or anything, but
when
you're a vegan, right? And I also don't smoke cigarettes, and I also don't drink alcohol. And when you for example, when you go to a Portuguese person's house, and Portuguese people, you know, sometimes when I say this, I feel like people might think I'm being patronizing, and I'm really not. Any of us who are Brits know what I'm talking about, right? When you come here, Portuguese people are just so lovely, aren't they? Are they not, Carl?
Can I tell a story?
It's a stereotype. Go on. It's a stereotype. But
we had our karaoke on Saturday night, and by the end of the evening, I got a chance during the evening to say all us, because a Portuguese family came in. At first, they were like watching mostly American and British people doing a karaoke and having a dance. So it's quite unusual to have foreign people, mostly of a certain age, right? So that was probably a bit of a giveaway and a bit odd. And we were singing karaoke in the way that we do. And then a group came in who were Spanish, Swedish, and Portuguese, some young people who appeared to be sort of more European than we were, and some Portuguese among them. And then a Portuguese family who were staying in the hotel came in, and they stayed. And I got a chance to say, are there any Portuguese songs we can sing together that you can teach us foreigners? We love being in your country. Thank you so much. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh God, they're thinking he's a right tosser, this bloke. We're going to get out of here. But they stayed and they took it at face value. And we started playing Portuguese songs and we started singing them. And the Portuguese people started singing. And then I saw the Portuguese family yesterday and stood in the street talking with them for about 10 minutes. And they said what a lovely evening they'd had. Just all of that to say, yes. You know, in England, I'm thinking there would have been cynicism and banter. And get off, you tosser, and all this sort of stuff. But the Portuguese people were so welcoming to us foreigners invading with our karaoke in their space. Completely.
Because it is a thing, you know. It's like I'm not. I've said to people may be shocked when I say this. If I had to, I will chuck my British passport into the sea when I get a Portuguese passport. I'm really not joking. I want to embrace it. I want to be. I've really got a target now. By the end of this year, I want to be conversational in Portuguese.
Yeah, but you know it's good content. You doing that, right? And you'd have to drive all the way to the coast unless you got a really good throw. I'm looking forward to that video. I really am.
You know what I mean, though. I'm really being genuine about it, and but there's things that I won't compromise on. Do you know what I mean? Like I won't compromise. Like I even though it's traditional here. So what I was saying, when you go to someone's house, straight away they'll normally, no matter what time of day, they'll pour you a glass of wine that probably has come from their own vineyard. You know, and they'll start cutting you slices of ham and cheese, and they're all things that I can't. I won't.
Yeah, of course. Their love, their hospitality isn't landing with you in the way that they.
So it's like here's some wine, and sometimes I don't have the words. I'm getting better now. I'm getting better with Portuguese, but sometimes I feel like I don't have the words to say. These things don't matter. I feel your warmth. You know what I mean? I feel your warmth, and these things don't matter. And but that's all. You know, I hope that all of us who are here can know is that you don't have to give up your fundamentals. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
but you don't become a fundamentalist. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to give up your being a British person and what that means.
Yeah.
But we got to embrace. You know what I mean? We got to embrace where we are, and we got to embrace the Portuguese way of life as well.
Yes,
you know what I mean. But it doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean you have to abandon who you are either. I think
it's an intelligence test, isn't it? It's not an ideology test.
Yeah. So that's kind of been my way of thinking.
Why were you giving us that term prelude then? To what
well, just to say that it is difficult sometimes. But I'm finding people. Hey, Anthony, how you doing? That's a nice name. All the best people, as we always say, are called Anthony. But
I thought you were meaning hillocks. That's also a nice name.
Well, all I was going to say is that sometimes when you have such in a way kind of I don't know, is it fringe ways,
alternative,
like, you know,
non-mainstream.
Imagine that. Yeah, I'm so alternative that I don't drink alcohol, right? And I'm so alternative that I'm a vegan. But the thing is, when the things start to pile up, because I also don't smoke or do anything like that. I'm into fitness. Do you know what I mean? You kind of start to feel even though they shouldn't be things that are really weird, you start to feel yourself feeling very much an outsider. Do you know what I mean? It's like yesterday I went out for lunch with my friends. I call it the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. We're all just so different. And we went to a very traditional Portuguese restaurant, but you know, the waitress was lovely. Once she heard that I was a vegano, she just thought about it. She said, not a problem. She came out, she made me a salad. She made me some rice with some chips. Not a particularly interesting lunch, but do you know what I mean? She went out of her way to make me feel comfortable and wanted. It wasn't difficult. There was no tutting or muito difícil, which actually weirdly I got from Dollar Line.
Keep going.
which actually I got from one of my friends, my friends who I was out for lunch with, and she was like, "Oh, what kind of a stupid idea is it that a vegan would come to a Portuguese restaurant?" And I'm like, "Oh, come on, you know what I mean? What am I going to do? Because otherwise I can't go out."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I'm not doing it. And it's not easy. A lot of vegans will tell you it's not easy when you're sitting at a table and people are getting stuck into what you view as animal
Yeah,
parts.
of
Do you know what I
course.
mean?
Yes, yeah, yeah, it's like a horror movie,
you know,
for you, isn't it?
yeah. But you know what I mean. I love my friends, and I love going out to traditional
Well, that works
restaurants.
both ways as well,
You
doesn't it?
know,
And that's why I think there's a bit of a discomfort, because whilst they are tucking in, anyone who's kind of thinking that is thinking you're watching, thinking that, and it's a bit awkward, isn't it? Possibly.
I know it's difficult, but I mean, you could say that for the same with religion, couldn't you? You
No
know what I mean?
question. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know yourself where you're breaking bread with if you're breaking bread with people from religions that aren't your own, let's
Yeah.
say,
Yes.
you know, what are they thinking about you? You know,
I don't know. I just say pass the naan or pass the
yeah,
chapati.
well, exactly. You
Breaking
don't
bread.
make a big deal out of it. I mean, you know, Solar Life was saying, "Tell us again, you're a vegan." You don't mention it enough. But I
Yeah.
mean, yesterday the only time it
I think
came up,
that's his own discomfort. He's still working through it.
well, no,
Providing a service.
it came up two times. One of them was obviously when I was ordering the food, and then later on, one of the people I was out for dinner with who somehow didn't know, because I don't always tell people Solar Life. Lots of people know me and don't know that I'm a vegan. Okay,
And also some have misheard you, and they think you're a virgin as well.
Yeah,
There's that,
yeah.
isn't there?
Well,
People have
could
sat with
happen
you
as
for a
well.
whole meal, looking at you, going, "Well, I can't believe it. I can't believe it."
That's the thing. I'm a vegan.
Yeah.
I don't smoke. I don't drink, and I'm a virgin.
Yes.
So I'm really in the corner.
And you catch people looking at you across the table, presumably going, "Well, I can't believe it. Can't believe it. How's that? How's that possible?
How's that happen? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It should be easy for oh, no, I'm not going to keep going.
Right. So hold on a minute. This is a very long prelude to something you were going to tell us, possibly. Hi, Gina. Good to see you.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, fair enough then. Let's move on and just pretend that was a kind of random bit of conversation that
we could get away with that. Carl, we could get away with that.
That's if any two people can get away with a random conversation, it's us, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
The geek trifecta. Oh, what veganism, virginity? What was the other one? Not smoking or drinking.
Oh, yeah, I don't
harsh.
Smoke. I mean, I also don't smoke crack.
I
also don't smoke crack. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's kind of like
you're such an outcast in central Portugal. What do you do when the pipe comes round? Just sort of go to the toilet.
I pretend. I don't. What I do is I don't
inhale.
I don't inhale.
Very good. Oh, you should run a course or something to teach other people how to do this and feel comfortable in.
I should run. Probably
in mixed social situations. Okay,
Jackie, how you doing? Jackie, how you doing? Everything okay?
Look, let's not rise.
Vegans don't do anything but kill coffee. Oh my god, this guy's a wind-up merchant.
Have you heard that one before? Have you heard that one? You don't kill anything other than the conversation.
I have heard them all. I've heard them all. I'm worse than people who ride bicycles, apparently. All sorts of things like that. I also
really, and that's a low bar. That is a very low bar, isn't it, in terms of social stigma?
I'm also a cyclist, but I get away with it because because I like mountain biking. So I don't.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Wow, choose your niche.
I haven't tried the vegan place in Tomar, Gary.
I don't know if this is a joke. There might be a punchline to that.
There are some vegan. Do you know that? See, you know, I know people don't like this. Lisbon apparently gets a lot of. It's quite often rated in one of the top 5 places in the world for vegan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vegan
I've eaten in vegan restaurants in not I was gonna say all over the world. I haven't traveled the world really, but I've been to excellent vegan restaurants in London, Brighton. I think in Lisbon as well. Yeah, Lisbon. I've been to a vegan restaurant with vegan friends. I'm up for giving it a go. Absolutely, especially when with vegans, because it's like, wow, you know, I can eat meat anytime, but trying something a little bit different with vegan friends and making it a bit special is great. When I was in Brighton, I had one of the best vegan meals ever. It wasn't 8th Day. That was the other place there, wasn't it? But it was really superb evening because they were really going for it. It was a gourmet vegan restaurant, and it was an experiment in food. And it was lovely.
One of the Burger Kings in Lisbon is vegan.
Right.
Yeah, and Burger King, and
of course, okay, because but that's a very interesting. Hi, Joe, lovely to see you. A true reverend here on the screen there. Greetings, beautiful people. Love the Rev. We do love the Rev, but I see what you mean there as well. Yeah, the burger restaurants, they could very easily, and it looks like they want to. Whenever I go into a fast food restaurant, they're pushing. Certainly, Burger King is pushing vegan burgers. They don't want to do meat, do they? They want to make
No.
it. It's much easier for their production line to have
Yeah.
vegan
Yeah.
produce. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the production line for I can't say Burger King, but I know, for example, McDonald's stretches all the way to Australia. Do you know what I mean? So the supply chain for the meat is incredible when you look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
McDonald's. And
Yes.
I've seen farmers in Australia actually measure their stock in burgers. So they don't
Seriously.
talk about head of cattle. They talk about burgers.
Wow.
So this is yeah, I'm very sure that for the fast food chains, and I do think that as the sorry, I'm just looking at Anthony Hillock, so quite interested in that.
Okay.
But as the but as the the quality and the taste of the burger, the vegan style burgers improves. And I think I've challenged people, because I know people have eaten vegan burgers and gone, well, that's not very good. You know, the kind of fake ones. I'm not talking about like the bean burgers or anything that aren't trying to be, but please go out and try. Just trust me on this. Go out and try the Beyond Burgers, and you tell me, and I'll accept it if you come back to me and say, Geeza, you were wrong about that. They taste terrible. I'm never doing that again. Then I can accept that. But try it, because I think you will really be pleasantly surprised. Like you might find that you like.
Do they do
like them
mince?
more.
Is that the firm that does mince at Lidl?
Well, there's a few. The little ones aren't that good, to be honest with you.
Right.
They're like the old version. But if you get beyond, the only place I've seen them is in Ocean, sometimes
Okay.
Leclerc, and sometimes that Celerio stocks it as well.
I'll give it a go sometime. Yeah.
Sausages, mince burgers, things like that, and they are really nice. They are really nice. Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting.
Snowman, do you really think that we should have a minute's silence? Because
I'm
happy to do it.
That. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that if you're not joking, Snowman Crumble. With a name like that, I'm not sure if you are trolling us or seriously suggesting that. And it's hard. I'm not saying you are or you aren't. It's just hard to tell from a comment. Do you know this person?
I don't know him. But,
right. Okay. So the Pope is dead. You lot should show some respect in here. Have 1 minute silence, even. Yeah, fair enough. Portugal is a Catholic country, unlike other heathen places out there.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a call for respect, and also the description of heathen places, interestingly as well. There. Oh, and commie Pope. So we've got a mixed audience tonight, haven't we? And I think I don't want to entertain. I don't know, just downright rudeness and disrespectfulness. Let's have a you know, we do believe it or not, we do endeavor to have a intelligent conversation here on a Monday evening. So you know, we understand if people are not Catholics, but you know, perhaps it is too soon to be venting your anti-Catholic spleen on a day like today, and I am open to that, actually. So yes, Snowman Crumble is being civil. And I've no objection to having a minute's silence for the Pope and for people to reflect on what that means to them. Have you already started?
Okay, let's do it. I'll count down 5 seconds.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay, thanks for that suggestion, Snowman Crumble. And for me, I don't, I was contemplating the, cheers, and a lull, an uncomfortable laugh at the end of the minute
Yeah.
silence, possibly for the Pope there. And I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. For me, Snowman, what encouraged me to do that is we are in Portugal, and it is a Catholic country, and the
Yeah.
Pope, as a figure, and I think as a man, I heard a lot of people talking, especially fondly, about this particular man. But that is a loss to people who have welcomed us into their community, and for whom that is an important source of spiritual nourishment. And it's on that basis that I'm very happy to be respectful in that way. So yeah, there you go. Good to make your acquaintance, and thank you for the suggestion there. It's a mixed bag because we are still talking about vegan burgers, and I mean, it comes a point, doesn't there, where, and you must have this with some of your vegan correspondence, where it's like you do you, I'll do me. There's no point at a certain point, is there, with some people and their views on it? It's not. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Pete might be one of them.
it's no point. Yeah.
Okay. Right. On the broader matter of death, dying, and resurrection, which of course this last Easter weekend was, did that have a special significance for you as a Christian?
I did actually make a video on Friday, I think, because I was just thinking, obviously, what the weekend means to me, but I was trying to let other people know about something they could perhaps do on the weekend, even if they're not Christians, which was, there's this idea of confession, and it was just something I was thinking about on the weekend, and I wanted to share. Obviously, I've got no idea if I articulated it very well, but for example, in Catholicism, the idea of confession is that you go into the box and you confess to the priest, and the priest has a direct line to God, right? Somehow.
That's right, though, is it? Is that?
Well, no, I don't think it is. So this is what I wanted to.
No, but is that what Catholics think happens? Is, generally speaking, as a generalization.
I definitely don't want to speak for all Catholics, but I can tell you what I believe, and I'm not a Catholic, but I did. When I was young, my mum was desperate to make me. Okay, she did make me go to a Catholic school. I didn't want to. We actually had to convert to Catholicism briefly
for you to go to a decent school.
So that I could go to the school. So I've had the experience of Catholic Church.
Yeah,
but what I wanted to say to people was, I think in a way there's almost two levels to it. There's the kind of there's the kind of what do you call it when you interpret something without any nuance?
Ideology.
Something like ideology, or like maybe
dogma.
Yeah, I don't even want to say that, because I feel like it's got a negative connotation. But I mean, I think you can read things literally. Maybe.
Blind faith. Some people say, don't they?
It could be. But what I was trying to say to people was that God knows everything about you.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your idea of God is, because I've said before, I don't think of God as a man with a beard on a cloud.
Yeah.
I think God. I've probably got more in common with pantheists, to be honest, if you had to put a name on it.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying about the news. People who used to say, I don't have a telly, used to be really weird. But now no one really does. Or if they have a telly, they don't really watch it as a telly. Like saying I don't believe in a man with a white beard is also not that radical anymore either, is it?
No. But I suspect that a lot of people who have more, especially nowadays, who have more access to kind of education and can consider the reasons why it probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We have a better understanding of what confession is, because there's obviously a lot of things that are kind of inconsistent when you think about what confession is. I mean, obviously, confession must mean something different than telling God what you've done, because God knows what you've done.
Yes.
He knows everything that you've done.
Okay, so what do you think the value is then?
I think confession is, and what I was inviting people to do was to try it, was to go out. You could do it in church. You could do it in the confession box if you want. but what I was inviting people to do was to go out in nature, find a place, obviously, where no one's going to hear you, and say the things that you're feeling out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And in my experience, and this might just be for me, but in my experience, when you do that, it means you have to face them.
Yes.
It means you have to face them. So you have to think, I am being shit to that person.
Yeah.
Why did I lie to that person?
Yes.
Why am I putting that off? Why am I putting myself first when I should be, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and you can say those things. And I've honestly had a feeling like when I stand up, I feel lighter. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so what I was trying to invite people to do was not look at confession as something just inside of, you know, if you I feel like I'm kind of preaching now because I've got this Jesus behind me, and I actually said in the video, I said,
"Do you want the whole screen? I mean, I can just do. I said,
you didn't expect me to come and say Jesus is knocking on your door."
However,
no, but what I really wanted to say is that it's that for me, the universe is all around you, and you can get those things out of your. God already knows.
Yeah, there's so much.
God
power.
already knows. God already knows. Okay, so you're not hiding anything from God.
No.
So who are you telling when you put those words out there? Who are you telling?
You're telling
yourself
at a deeper level,
yourself.
or maybe somebody else as well, which I think can be to bear witness to people.
Yeah,
is what I would hope is the value of confession. So being available to someone who needs to say something out loud is very, very useful and loving and powerful.
Yeah,
and obviously, you know, we're human beings, so that's a risky thing. But in essence, and what I think the value is for two people in a confessional situation is one to bear witness to the other, and for the other to do what you said, which is to say something out loud and face it.
Yeah. Well, because I think we bury a lot of stuff. Bury a lot of stuff. There's a lot of those things are kind of joined together, like guilt or shame.
Yeah.
Or anger, jealousy.
All those things drive a world we would rather be free of, I suspect, would be one way of putting it. Right?
And what I was trying to say is what I think the value of religion is, and I know I've spoken about this on the channel before, where the kind of new atheists dismiss people who use faith as a tool to help them behave. And one thing I spoke about in the videos, I said we should actually be very thankful that people do that and have those tools available. And then I just wanted to say that, you know, even if you don't necessarily believe in and I don't believe that Jesus is a building or a set of clothing or a book. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can still use the tools. Do you know what I mean? Because the tools are in you. And I think this is another thing where people talk about being made in God's image. I don't think that means that God looks like us. I think that means
we could be more like God. Yeah.
In the same way that we are made of stars. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I'm with you all the way. And I think that's another reason why we should be respectful of how Catholics might feel about the death of the Pope today, because, you know, it's easy to say what's wrong with Catholicism in the way that you're talking about, you know, people, the atheist smugmer, as I call it. I really, you know, I don't want to go as far as saying I despise it, but I don't think it gives us anything. And it brings us back to veganism again as well, in terms of it's really much more important and useful to us human beings to try and find the value in something than to dismiss something because we feel uncomfortable with it. There's nothing to be gained from that, is there, except a shallow sort of victory. You get to be right in your own mind. And we must know, mustn't we, that, you know, in these last 2,000 years, to use the Christian time frame, that actually people being right is not a great motivator and is the motivator for many atrocities. That is usually what drives an atrocity.
And also it shifts. You know what I mean? And I think we've seen that so much recently. We've seen what how the way truth can shift. I mean, it's something that I mean, something that was really funny. Another thing, I know a lot of people, bringing up, let's say, COVID, just as an example, okay? And what struck me as very interesting about COVID, and it was one of the other things that made me skeptical. Again, I don't think that COVID was harmless. I don't think nobody died of it. Blah blah blah. Okay, all the caveats you have to say from
your usual laminated card of things that you have to show people before you say.
Yeah. But one of the other things that confused me was people saying, "Trust the science, trust the science," and I thought, well, when I was a boy, I was quite like a lot of young boys, I was quite interested in science. So I was interested in dinosaurs, for example. And I remember being a kid at the time when paleontologists were starting to reevaluate whether or not dinosaurs were lizards and maybe in fact were more like birds. Just as an example. So for me, what I knew as a young person interested in science, like I remember black holes being theoretical. I remember when there had been no planets discovered outside of our solar system. So and this was like theoretical. So what I'm trying to say is that I grew up understanding that science can change, and that actually when you get a group of scientists together, it's very rare to find. I think it was Richard Dawkins, funnily enough, talking about famous atheists, but it was Richard Dawkins who spoke about this, was saying it's very rare to be in a group of scientists who are very, very sure of themselves. It's almost whenever they're speaking about theories, they're speaking with caveats and, they're hedging. They're always hedging.
Yes.
But then during COVID, suddenly it was like, if you don't trust the science, then you're an idiot.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like, well, hang on.
And also, is there not a parallel to be drawn between the dogmatically religious type of stereotype and the scientifically dogmatic? Because you would imagine, and I'm guessing, that people take comfort from religious dogma because it ends the inquiry, doesn't it? I just know this, it is like this, and that's I'm scared, and that's what I need to know and feel right now. And I think the same thing was true with science in the time of COVID. It was, I just don't want to talk about this. I just need to know what to do. I want to be told what to do. I want the best facts. These are the best facts. Okay, let's go with these facts and shut down any other anything outside of that.
I might have even been able to do that, but I've got kids, and I know you have as well, Carl, and that forced us to think, didn't it? That forced us because there was a time when you thought they're going to want me to put this stuff in my kids, and I think I've said on the channel before, I was honestly speaking, I was scared because I didn't know. Normally I know what to do, guys. I know what to do. Like whatever happens, I know I'm the guy who knows what to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or if I know that I don't know, and then I'll ask someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But in that situation, I didn't know what to do, and I had no one else to ask because everybody else was either, oh, this is bollocks, it's a pandemic, and they're gonna put do
you need to take that? I know there are some important messages to and fro.
They're gonna put microchips in you, or it was you're gonna kill. Of course, you have to take it. It's not just you. You're gonna kill everyone else.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I did see a video of a whole kind of range of Catholic priests led by Pope Francis urging people to do the right thing and take the vaccine. It was like it was very interesting to see that, and you might want to see that for yourself and let us know what you think about that. But what was fascinating to me was the same sort of people who would be, oh, you don't believe in a bearded white man in the sky, do you? Brought the same lack of curiosity and inquiry that they might in a religious setting to a scientific setting, didn't they? They really did, but they did have their white man in bearded man in the sky when it came to science for a little while, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
just do it. It was like
Dr. Fauci, for example. And I saw people wearing t-shirts with, particularly in America, where it had t-shirts made with "Fauci is our savior," and I thought, this is madness.
Yes,
it's like I'd be interested to see in the future how it's remembered.
I think people will move on. Things don't get remembered, do they? I mean, they might be briefly remembered, but I think things move on, and it'll be the next. It'll be the same thing emerging, but with a different face, I suspect. But very, very interesting parallels to be drawn. And the main point that I would like to make is it's really important to explore value and not write things off, and not when we see ourselves coming from certainty, when we see ourselves being right at the expense of being curious, that's a loss to me. I think if I see myself doing that, I know that's a loss, and I suspect it's a loss when other people do it as well. But that's their business to see that or not. And it's fascinating, and going back to what confession and prayer, I think there's something really beautiful to pursue the value of these things, even if you think they're to you not your taste, or they're outdated, they're old-fashioned. To think for a moment, what is the value that might be here in this? So prayer is another good one. I mean, I might be repeating myself, but I repeat myself because it's connected to the confession point you made. The C.S. Lewis quote: "I don't pray because it changes God. I pray because it changes me." And that to me is such a beautiful thing, that the process of applying ourselves to these.
I mentioned that in the video. I mentioned that in the video, that you'd reminded me of that quote, because that quote sits in a very similar space to what I'm talking about with confession.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not confessing because I think I'm hiding something from God.
Yes.
I'm confessing because I'm hiding something from me.
Yes, and you can help me and see that, can't you? As a compassionate human being, perhaps as well. Amazing. But if your children were seriously hurt, would you take them to a hospital or a homeopathic center? What do you call that? What is that? Straw man?
Straw man. It's a straw man.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if he'd have, he's kind of asked it as a question, but it's a straw man.
Okay. We're certain about that. Are we being dogmatic, maybe?
Well, maybe. To be honest with you, I think a lot of people don't. I don't think most people debate using logical fallacies. Some do.
Yes.
Now, some do it on purpose, but I think most people in just normal discourse don't know they're doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because it's
normal.
normal.
You know what I mean?
It's just normal. It's normal.
I mean, I do it as well. I sometimes hear myself doing it as well. I'll go, oh yeah, I suppose that means you do, and then as I say, so this is the thing I was complaining about, and I'm doing it as well. But we're not having a formal debate here either, are we?
No, thank God, God, because what is that? That is just a athletic. It's mental athletics, isn't it, to dominate your opponent?
That's the other reason I say to people: be very, very careful when you're watching YouTube videos, and quite often there's people, these quasi-intellectuals, and it's sophistry. And what I mean by sophistry is
that?
It's where someone is pretty good with words, they're pretty quick, and they're quite intelligent, and they're winning an argument, not necessarily because their idea is the right one. Hitchens would be a good point.
Just good at it.
Yeah, they're very
there's
good,
evoking
very
videos,
good at
isn't there?
debating.
Like this guy destroys university students.
Exactly.
That's a classic in that genre.
So this is an example of sophistry. I mean, to pick one on the left for a bit of balance would be what's I've forgotten his name now, haven't I? The LBC guy.
Oh, James O'Brien. Yeah, absolutely.
James O'Brien is it? Yeah. Well, he's not only a sophist, he's a bully as well.
Yes,
and that's the other thing. But
sophistry.
I've got a feeling it's the root of sophistication, and
I
so
suspect it is.
It can be difficult to debate someone who's a better.
It means truth. It's actually like philosophy is the love of truth. Isn't it? But I mean, that doesn't mean it still is.
You know what I mean by rhetoric, right? If you're better at it, like a lot of politicians are very good at this. You'll find so it can be quite hard to get a straight answer out of people, or they'll find ways to manipulate or undermine. And these are the type of people who will use logical fallacies deliberately. By the way,
and to dominate and have their way.
So you have to be very on guard. So to speak about a controversial person, who's
Boris Johnson.
Whether or not you agree with someone like, say, Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
If you watch the Jordan Peterson and Kathy
Newman,
Kathy Newman
yes.
interview, so he's very measured and he always listens very carefully to what the other person says. So when they try and use those devices against him, he will always catch it out.
He'll get them like the Pavlova of the parallel bars of debate, won't he? Straight in there.
Yeah. So this is a problem, if you call into something like LBC when James O'Brien is speaking, it's quite possible that even if your position is sound, you don't stand a chance. This guy does this day in, day out, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Have you ever read the Vanity Fair article on JP? No, we haven't seen that. He definitely has a particular shtick. Yeah. And again, coming back to the idea that what's the value in it? And the most important value is your value in something, I would have thought, in your own personal unfoldment and the development of your own personal intelligence, rather than trying to come up with ideological generalizations, which we seem to be dealing with a lot in our world at the moment. Is there anything else you want to say about Easter and resurrection? And I think there's something really powerful in the metaphor, and it's a shame it's come down to chocolate eggs in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this very much in passing, and I asked my subscribers if they wanted me to make a video about it. I think a lot of people nowadays are at least in passing aware of how many Christian ceremonies are in fact appeasement to pagans.
Yes.
Yeah. So for example, they kind of knew they weren't going to get in if they didn't let them have their egg ceremony, their fertility ceremony, or the tree. Yes. Christmas tree is another one. Giving presents at Christmas, etc., etc. These are all the remains of the pagan ceremonies that existed before Christianity. Yes. And unfortunately, they've also been the parts that have been easy for companies to monetize.
Appealing to the lowest kind of drives of humanity, presumably. And that's not a bad thing, unless it's without acknowledgement of some of the higher drives, perhaps. And that to me is a very fascinating subject. And presumably the root of humility and piousness is the quiet work of great holy people, or people in the business of religion, who know that they have to take a very slow approach to these things, and they often don't. Their profession often doesn't, and it's the quieter. I mean, I might embarrass my friend Reverend Joe, who was here earlier on, but his pace and compassion to me is exemplary in the clergy. It's not made him a very popular clergyman, interestingly, if I'm using the right terminology there, Joe. But he is one of the most loving, generous, and compassionate men I know. And it's not very fashionable to be that good at it within the religious industry, if you like. And he does it anyway. And the way I see that is it's because it's between him and God. It doesn't matter what other humans think. I'm not putting words in his mouth. This is what I think about him. I really get that it was between him and whatever you would describe as the good Lord, the everything, the unit, whatever people call it, the isness, the everything, the stardust. I think the magic. His journey is with that and himself, and other people come into that as a way of him demonstrating and embodying what it means to him. And that's what I think is so great about him and other people who operate in that way. I think, the world could do with more people like that, but it's very hard to be like that in the times that we live in, when you're constantly being called to be right and to dominate and to survive as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Reverend Joe.
Snowman Crumble asked an interesting question. He said, what is it you two miss the most about the UK, by the way? And I'm struggling.
I often, I mean, I'm with you on this one, Snowman Crumble. That smell, I mean, this would be wasted on you, Tony, because it would be quite the opposite, I suspect. But I do like the smell of ale, and in an old-fashioned pub, that and the sound. That was one of my favorite things to do in UK, was not go out on a sesh, but actually go with
Yeah.
my family, if you like, to a pub lunch, and that
Yeah,
bar
yeah.
is a British pub. Do love that.
Well, I think that you can go to a pub and in England and be vegan and not drink
and have that experience
because you know, a lot of pubs aren't really drinking pubs anymore. Those days are kind of disappearing. But yeah, I mean, even when I was in England, I was really sort of reducing my alcohol. I switched to real ale.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was younger, I was a lager kind of guy, and I switched to real ale, kind of the more 3%-y kind of stuff. But yeah, I used to enjoy Sunday Carvery. I mean, that was something that I definitely enjoyed in the UK, which is a uniquely British experience, I think. So quite often when I lived, for example, when I lived in Buckinghamshire, we had a book that was circular walks in Bucks. And
fire ale. God,
and
God.
they almost always what?
No, I'm just he's going into all his favorite ales. Sorry.
Yeah. They almost always started at pubs.
Yes.
The circular walks. You know, and you remember in England you have the stiles, and you could walk through the farms.
Yeah,
so
and there'd be a bowl of water for the dogs, and it would all be very nice, wouldn't it? And you leave your boots outside, all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
very nice, very nice.
Now the funny thing is,
no Stella on tap in these.
Oh God, no! And some of them insisting that people don't use mobile phones as well. All great stuff like that. Yeah. The funny thing is, and this goes to another one of those what sounds like a patronizing thing foreigners say about Portugal is, oh, it's like so and so in the 70s. Now, from that point of view,
yeah, I said that even today, and I hated myself for saying it. Even just today, I said it.
What's the value in that? The value in that, to me, is what we're just reminiscing about. When I used to live in near Andairo here, when he lived there as well, and I remember a local cafe where I would walk in at lunchtime, and there was a buzz of a mixture of families and local old folks and workmen having their prato do dia, and you would hear the clank of cutlery and crockery, and you would smell cooking, and you could smell beer. It's the same sort of thing, and the families there are kids running about in the car park and in the outside bit. That vibe is alive and well in Portugal. So, and that's why I say that. What might sound a bit patronising, that vibe I think is still alive and well in Portugal, where it might be dying in the UK.
Carl, I'm not joking. I'm really trying to make a massive push this year to become conversational in Portuguese.
Right. Okay.
And part of that is I go to my. Now I've just started. I go to my local cafe just every day, even if I just drop in and just have one or two coffees.
Same here.
And I'm being made to feel very welcome. And when I go in, I'm not just getting the handshake now. I'm getting the handshake and the the reach around.
Same here. You know, I'm getting the reach around
onto the shoulder, and
You
know, people are. You know, I go to pay for my coffee, and someone's paid. And,
marvelous. These are the rites of passage, aren't they? And you deserve it by making the effort, or you earn it. You don't deserve. You earn it by making that effort. I think it's fantastic. And even if you don't get conversational, I suspect you'll get that same love that a foreign person would get in a British pub, right? You know, we've had friends, presumably in the UK, who haven't spoken very good English, but they've put themselves out there. Yeah, and it's much tougher for them because they get in the piss ripped out of them, aren't they?
Well, that's right. Well, maybe we don't know.
We don't know. We'll find out one day. We'll find out one day that's exactly what's going on as they put their arm around you and laughing in front of everybody else. Right, Tony. Well done. It's so rewarding, says Pete. The effort you put in always comes back to you. Yeah, earning those stripes. I went to a club recently with pretty Portuguese girls, boring them with my two phrases I can say in Portuguese. I wonder what they were. You should share those, Fleedon, for other people in the similar situation.
Onde fica o casa-banheiro, perhaps?
Yeah, it's not the best chat-out line, is it?
It's not that good, no.
I don't think so.
Well, that's one of the first phrases you should probably learn.
Right. Same here in the cafe. Someone I didn't know paid for my coffee yesterday. Oh, so beautiful. And it's easier in a smaller vis. Yeah, well said, Pete there. Right. we did. We had a little bit of a go at death, dying, and resurrection, but not as much of a go as it will have at us one day. As
Yeah.
a last,
Well,
as a
it's a good place. It's probably a good place to die, if there is such a thing.
what, Portugal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. In fact, what somebody said that on one of the calls. The great Gilda Pereira said, we were doing a inheritance tax, I think, came up in a conversation, and she said, "You see, not only is it a good place to move to, it's a good place to die in as well." And she's a show stealer like that. So there you go. There's your chat up lines. Moras aqui, yeah, where do you live? Trabalhas aqui, where do you work? Falam pouco Português. There you go. Very good. And estás boa, that's good. Bem, bem. Querem beber, perhaps? Bebida? Querem bebida? Quer uma bebida. That's an international chat up line, isn't it? What you drinking?
Café, por favor.
Yes. And then what would often happen 20 minutes in, they'll say something like, "Shall I go and get us another couple of drinks in perfect English?" And you sweating at me for the last 20 minutes trying to figure that out. Actually, not being conversational increases your market value with women in Portugal. Oh, okay. So you can't incriminate or make yourself look stupid by being a sort of a calm, cool, silent type, perhaps. And we have a family plot in the hills of Amarant. Oh, a burial plot. That sounds so romantic, doesn't it?
Yeah, but this is something. I wonder if the other Brits would have a comment on this. But I really like graveyards. No, that sounds wrong. But one thing I find quite nice in the UK, there's some places where you can kind of, like, if you go up to an old church, like when I lived in Wickham, there's the West Wickham Caves, and at the top there's an old church, and it's got an old Gothic graveyard of it. You know what I mean? At night it's quite creepy, but it's interesting to walk through there. It's old and interesting, whereas in Portugal they're kind of beautiful. I think the graveyards, and it might sound morbid, but I when I've thought about it, it hasn't been a morbid thought at all. But when I've walked past the graveyard in my village, I've often wondered to myself, I wonder if one day I'll be buried in there, you know. And I wonder if people.
It wouldn't be the end of the world.
It wouldn't be the end of the world. Well, it might be.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, but you know, I've wondered sort of what turnout. I don't know, but you can't help but think about these things, can you? It's
for sure, and there's no harm. Again, is it fear and gloom and doom, or is it looking for the value in it? Again, if we look for the value, I'm sure there's always something there for us. Your vegan recipe, Tony, a recipe for vegan bacon: soak tofu in soy sauce overnight, cut it very thin and fry it. It's got the taste of the fat from bacon. Oh, what in the pan? Okay, that's a joke, I think, isn't it? All right.
Oh no, that's soy sauce. No, he said soy sauce. I get what you're thinking. You soak it in fat from bacon, but he's saying no. I have heard this. You fry it you soak it in soy sauce, then cut it thin, and then fry it, and it tastes like bacon.
Fair
fat.
enough. And well spotted, Bradley Edwards. Our final show for a while. We'll have an arrest. Tony and I will continue to speak once a month, I hope, on the Good Morning Portugal show. So we'll have a hell of a lot to cram into that 20 minutes. But have a little break for the spring and the summer. And we thank you. This is episode. Did you imagine, Tony, that we would do 28 episodes? What's that?
Wow.
7 months worth, isn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's been awesome.
Great fun. Great fun. And we may, when the evenings get darker, you know, maybe we will light our pipes.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of it, isn't it? It's you know, the daylight is anyway. Hold
on a minute. This is a cliffhanger bombshell ending. You know, the remains are removed by whom and what on earth goes on in this country? I'll have to look into that, because one thing I didn't talk about was the trend here for people to very purposefully address aging and dying, and living and aging and dying well. Maybe we'll come back. That's a shame. I was just getting into it. So are we, by the way. Catch us in the morning.
I suddenly have so much to say.
It's always the way, mate. Always the way.
Reminds me of something I said. I remember when my mum. God, why am I suddenly bringing this up? It just reminds me of my mum passing away. I don't know why that's just popped into my head.
Right.
But it was just a really strange thing when my mum passed away. It was just like suddenly I had 100 things.
Yes. You wanted to say?
Yeah, just suddenly. Yeah, it wasn't like we didn't speak, but it was just suddenly I was like, oh,
Again, that's value, isn't it? To hear
Mm.
you say that, to share that, might inspire somebody to have the conversations that are a little bit awkward in life when it is possible. Thank you for sharing that, Tony. It's a very sweet moment in a way. So thank you very much for that. And I think that's been one of the sort of qualities of our show, is we have been quite open, authentic, and vulnerable. I hope that's what people remember us for until and should we return. Did anything else interesting happen to you in this week, just recently?
Well, it was just when we speaking about bars. It just reminds me of the time that I was last in a bar a long time ago.
Right.
And of all the things to walk into the bar was a termite.
Really, a termite walked into the bar?
Yeah, and he said, "Is the bartender here?"
Munson and the Geeza. Munson and the Geeza. Reporting from the scene, Munson and the Geeza. News in every ride.